Well, hello everybody. Today I have the opportunity to talk a little bit about Farming Smarter's new field-tested program that we launched this spring. So just maybe a quick outline of the roadmap for this presentation, where I'm going to go with it. So I'll start by talking about exactly what is field-tested. Spoiler alert, it's a program for facilitated on-farm research. Then I'd like to talk about why on-farm research is important. And because it's important, why is field tested your best option for conducting on-farm research? And finally, what field tested can do for you. So what is field tested? In a nutshell, it's a complete on-farm research service package. So we take care of all the details of an on-farm trial. It's the complete package from start to finish. So that means field tested, if you want to conduct an on-farm trial, field tested will come in and take care of those details, take care of all of those elements. So that means trial design. So we're taking into account the location, the research question, the cropping system, the crop, the operator, et cetera, et cetera. There's all these things that kind of come into play, and we're gonna consider them all and develop a trial. And we're gonna design it specifically to answer the question that you want to answer. And not only will we design the trial, but we'll be there for seeding. And we've done a number of these trials over the years, and I can't tell you how many times at springtime, at seeding time, one little piece in the system falls apart. So a piece of equipment doesn't work, some of the software doesn't speak to each other, and we're sort of left in the lurch. So it's been really important to have somebody with that expertise, somebody that can troubleshoot in the field, because we have a pretty narrow window to get these things done. So we'll provide that as well. We'll be there on the ground to make sure that the trial is implemented as designed. Then we'll be there to monitor and collect data from the trial throughout the season. Now, depending on the trial, there may be a lot or a little bit of data to collect, but there's certain things that we do like to collect regardless of the trial that give us a bit of a sense for what's happening. So we might collect emergence even if we don't expect to see a difference, and that'll tell us that our crop stand is healthy in all the sections of the field, and that gives us a little bit more confidence that the results we see at the end are due to the treatment we've applied and not something that's happened in the field. So we'll be there to take care of that, and we'll use different tools to collect it. So we've got a weather station, and we are capable to do some field mapping if that's something that makes sense for the trial. And finally, for the harvest side of things, and harvest, just like seeding, is a pretty critical time. We invest a ton of energy into a research trial, and again, things can fall apart pretty quickly. So we want to be there to make sure that as an operator, you don't need to worry about what has to go where and who needs to do what. We'll be there, we'll make sure the right data is collected from the right place, and that the data we do collect can be used to answer critical questions. And on top of that, we'll go in and do the data analysis. So not only will we know that something yields another, but we'll be able to tell you how confident we are in those results. So again, it's a complete on-farm research service. And it's for anybody. It's not just for growers. This is for researchers who are working with new ideas and new technologies, and they want to see them adapted and developed on a field scale. Field tested is for you. It's also for ag companies. So if you have a product or a technology that you want to prove the value of to your clients, and you want to see how it performs in an open environment, in a real-world setting, field tested is for you as well. An agronomist, if you've got a group of clients and you want to answer critical questions for them, field tested can help you provide value to your clients. So whoever you are, whatever your role is in crop production, there's a place for field tested to help you get important answers to critical questions. So why on-farm research? Why is it important to do research on the farm? There's a few main points here. One, it helps us to adapt and develop technologies. So technologies may be generated, but we often need to adapt them to local environments, to our local cropping systems, etc. And the best way to do that is to take it to the farm, bring it into the real world, evaluate its performance in a real world environment. Test it in a regional place, not just a field test anywhere, but on your farm, in your region. So on-farm research can do that. It can kind of move things along to the next step. This slide here shows what's called the Continuum of Development. So really what it is it's the steps that ideas take, that innovations take from basic research to application on the farm. So the first step there is basic research. And when I think of basic research, I think of this giant repository of knowledge that is slowly growing, and basic research sort of builds that repository of knowledge. And it's one little step by little step. It's a very incremental, slow process. And often in basic research, we're generating new ideas. So we don't really always know what we're going to discover, but we're investing in it, and we don't know what direction it's going to take us, but we're slowly building that repository of knowledge. Applied research would be the next step. And what applied research does is it takes those promising ideas, those technologies that might make an impact, and tries to focus them and understand them better. So if something shows promise in basic research, applied research will tighten the beam on it, will focus on it and say, okay, this shows promise. How can we turn this into something that we can use, something that benefits society, that benefits industry? And because we already have the idea and we have a pretty good idea where we want to go with it, it takes a little bit less time and resources to conduct applied research. Now where on-farm research fits is in the development side of things, and that's taking the applied research that now we already know something works, but we just need to adapt it to regional environments, to certain cropping systems. So how this works, it's a technology that we believe provides value, but how does it work on your farm? And not only how does it work on your farm, but what adjustments can we make to it to make it work a little bit better? And how do we, and we also want to evaluate it, not just in terms of does it work or does it not, but what does it add in the context of a real environment? What's the value of your investment in this new technology? And then finally, we get the in-field application. So from an agricultural standpoint, basic research is sort of your, working in the lab, working with genetics. It's pretty isolated from the farm. Applied research is something that Farming Smarter does a lot of. So it's small plot research. It's in a controlled environment, but we already have ideas that we suspect will work. They show promise, and we're just fine-tuning them a little bit. And on-farm research, as I mentioned, it's a good fit in the development stage. So, for example, Farming Smarter has a number of trials that we've conducted on our own small plots over the last number of years that we'd like to take to the next scale. So we'd like to take these ideas that we've proven in our small plots and bring them to a field scale, to an on-farm research environment, to further adapt them, to be able to critically evaluate the real benefit that they provide to producers. So that's going to be something that we're going to start moving through the field testing program. So now that I've convinced you that on-farm research is important, I'm going to tell you why field tested is your best option for on-farm research. And first of all, it's because on-farm research is tough. It's really difficult to do. From an investment standpoint, it's probably a better ROI than basic research, but there's still a lot of moving parts that have to be considered. I alluded to it before when I talked about all the things that field tested would take care of. And what happens with a field trial is a lot of the critical steps, and that would be seeding and harvest, they happen at exactly the same time that the producers we're working with are caught in these production bottlenecks, these narrow windows for seeding and harvest, and we're asking for time and resources at critical times for them. And I think as a general rule, in industry, we sort of fail to account for these true costs of research. And not only is this a critical time, but because it's a critical time for producers, the value of those resources and that time goes up big time. And we're asking them to commit, it may take 2 or 3 times as long or 4 times as long to seed an on-farm trial than a regular field. So we want to be cognizant of that and considering that and to be able to compensate for that. And by covering the true cost of research, it allows me as a researcher to take a little more risk in designing a trial. So I can sort of push the boundaries of what I want to see happen. We can test something that might be outside of the comfort zone of a producer by compensating them for the yield loss that happens. Because when it comes down to it, as a researcher, the research itself is what I'm interested in. I have no vested interest in the yield that comes off our small plot trials. But as a producer, that's what puts bread on the table. So you sort of have a split incentive to the research trial and to your own production. So we want to sort of consider those costs and try to take that out of the equation so we can do better research, better science, and come up with real answers to questions that can help you do a better job of farming. And there's also just the logistics of everything. So with all, as a grower, there's a ton of priorities out there that you need to focus on. So why not have field tested come in and manage that trial? We'll come out, let you know what has to happen, when it has to happen. We'll take care of the details, and you focus on doing the best job you can farming. The other big advantage of field tested is it's incredibly flexible. Whatever question you have, field tested can design a trial to answer it. It's your question, your farm, your trial. So whether it's a practice you've been using, different equipment you want to test, research results, technologies, maybe you want to evaluate something you've been doing for a long time that isn't even necessarily novel, but you want to have a sense of the real value of that to your farm. Different crops, different genetics. It's your question, your farm, your trial. Or if you're a company, it's your question, your product, your trial. Your question, your client, your trial. Whoever you are, whatever your question is, field tested can set up a trial to help you get a real answer. And if you have a question, chances are somebody else is asking the same question. And in this case, we can start to network you together. So if we have a few people asking the same question, we can build a program, not just a trial. Let's test this in 3 different locations and get a little more confidence in the data that we're building. And if 3 people are asking the question, probably more people are asking this question. So now we're at a point where even if you're not a farmer, even if you don't have the capacity to carry out the field operation side of a trial, we can match you up with somebody who can take care of that. Or we can get you to help us cover those true research costs. We can get you to invest in it, help everybody leverage their investment, and match you up with somebody who can carry out the trial. So we can work together. We're sort of building a network, and whoever you are, whether you have a question or you're willing to help us find an answer, we'll match you up. Everybody's getting connected in this network. It's kind of like Tinder for farmers. But there's no pressure, no obligation. You can swipe left anytime you want. Or you can swipe right. Or you can just delete the app altogether. Another benefit of field tested's approach is our approach to the data side of things. So what we do is when we harvest our strips, we bring a weigh wagon out and we get a real weight on every piece of the field, every part of the field that we test. But in addition to that, we collect a yield map. So everybody has the yield monitors. We're all collecting data, but often we don't really know how to focus that, how to use that. And we design our trials in a way that we can use that data to support our results. And I'll be honest with you, the data isn't the be-all and end-all. Having all that data, if it's not used properly, it's not the whole story, but we can use that to support the results we have. It helps us understand if something out-yields something else, we can dig into it and say, okay, why is this the case, and how variable are these responses? So that's something that field tested brings to the table that not everybody does. So now I want to talk about exactly what field tested can do for you right now. I think there's a tendency in industry as a whole to have a good sense that something works and understanding that, hey, this works, but we don't always critically evaluate the choices we make or the operations we do to say, what is the real value of this to my operation? And field tested gives you all an opportunity to critically examine what you do and to use science and data to hold you accountable to the decisions you make. So this is an example of one of the trials that we did with field tested this year. And in this case, we had a couple of farmers that came to us and said, hey, there's a product we've been using for the last number of years. We have a good sense that it works, but we don't know for sure, and we don't know how well it works, what the real value to us is. And in this case, the company came on board and said, hey, we believe in this product. We want to prove to our clients that it works, so we want to be a part of this trial as well. So we went through the field tested process. We designed a trial. We were there to help to oversee seeding, collect data and observations throughout the year, and then once the data is harvested and we analyze it, we can go to those producers and say, hey, this is the data, this is what actually happened, and you can now use this to make a decision for your operation. And we can go to the company and say, hey, here's the results, this is the value that your product provides to your clients. So I have a table on here, and it's just a mock-up, just a hypothetical, but it's a bit of an exercise in really thinking about what things cost and how important it is to understand the value of them to your operation. So if there's a hypothetical product X and it costs you $20 an acre between application and product costs, that's $3,200 for a quarter and $64,000 if you have 20 quarters, and that's in 1 year. So think about the value of knowing how much that contributes, how important it is to understand the value of this product to your operation, and why having an on-farm test with your farm, with your equipment, with your cropping system, et cetera, think about what that can do to you and the power that gives you to determine what to invest in on your farm. And it's not just whether or not something works, but is it the best place to invest your money? Maybe it works okay, but there's something else that is a better place to invest. So we want to help you make those decisions. And we're also able to do, so we did another trial this year that I'll quickly mention. We had somebody come to us and they're working with a novel crop, and they wanted to test some different varieties that hadn't really been tested up here. And they were interested in keeping things highly proprietary because they believed it would give them a competitive edge to understand how these different varieties performed. And that's something we can do too. It can be, we're interested in moving technologies and ideas from the basic research, applied research stage into application. And it doesn't matter who's interested in it or what you want to do with the data. It's your data, it's your trial. We're just helping you have confidence in the results. So now I just want to take a minute to turn this around on you. I want to put you in the hot seat for a second. And I want everybody to just think for a minute about what your top 3 priorities are. What are the 3 things on your operation that you have a good sense that they work, but you're not really convinced of the actual value? Is it worth investing in this practice, this technology? And not just the growers, but the companies and that, the agronomists too. Like, think about your big questions in agriculture. So maybe it's nutrient or fungicide applications, different seeding rates, different technology. But what are your top 3? And when you think of them, I want to know what your priorities are. So I want you to let me know what your research priorities are. So send me an email, tweet me, give me a phone call. You can try to find me on Tinder. But let me know what your top 3 priorities are. And I want to tell you what field testing can do. I want to show you how field testing can help you critically examine the choices you make and hold you accountable to what you invest in your farm. Thank you.
Thanks, Lewis. Now, I'm guessing that you'll take a few questions. If anyone has questions about farming smarter, the on-farm field application. If people want to get connected with it, what's the best way? Just to be in contact with you, and you can help them design a program? So basically they need to come to you with a question?
Yeah, I think if you are interested in field tested or doing a research trial, touch base with me. Like I said, send me an email, send me a tweet, and just let's have a conversation. And what are your goals? And we're going to help you meet them. We have the tools to do rigorous and reliable on-farm research, and we want to use that to help you achieve your goals.
And have you had some interesting projects so far? Like, are you just kind of getting rolling, or where are you at in the process? Is there a lineup, I guess?
So the project started this spring, and it was sort of a bit of a late start. So we got going in March, which didn't give us a lot of runway to really gain momentum. But we had some interesting, like I said, there was the grower who had different varieties they wanted to look at, different products. So there's definitely interest. And I think some of the researchers in the area too have been interested in taking some of their results and bringing them to the field scale. One of the things we had talked about, so Hector talked before lunch about how dealing with flea beetles in a post-neonic world, and that's something we'd really like to study on a field scale to really understand, the PMRA is making a move in maybe a bit of a short order, and I think it's important to understand, where we're going to be at a field scale. What are the true costs, and what does it mean for us if we do have to apply foliar insecticides maybe a couple times? So I think it's important to understand, not just from a lab perspective, but in the real world, and to be able to evaluate what these changes might mean. So that's a good example of something that we're really interested in taking to the field scale. So.
And what happens in small plots isn't always the same, or is there a great similarity?
Yeah, there's things that you don't always think of. So another of our trials that we're aiming to push through field testing is our precision canola. So we've seen, with a precision planter, a significant yield bump on narrower rows, but we want to know, does that hold true in a real environment? If we're on a field scale with a full-size equipment, and not only does it hold true, but are there adaptations we need to make? Can we make adjustments? What do we have to do to fine-tune things to maximize the value of this technology for farmers? And the only place to do that is on the farm. And if we're going to do it on the farm, let's bring some science into it so we can be confident in the results that we generate.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. And if you have any projects that you're potentially interested in or want to team up with Farming Smarter on, just give Lewis a call, and we'll go from there. Thank you very much, Lewis.